Every time you build momentum toward the life you want, something pulls you back. Not an external obstacle, not bad luck. Something inside you activates, quietly, invisibly, and you stop. You tell yourself it's burnout, or bad timing, or that you need to be more motivated. But the truth is darker than that. There is a mechanism inside you, a loop, that was designed to protect you, but now imprisons you. It knows when you are about to escape, and it knows exactly how to make you quit without feeling like you are quitting. This is not about willpower. This is about seeing what has been controlling you. And once you see it, you cannot unsee it. Chapter 1. The Pattern. You refuse to name. You have started before, many times, and you started well. With clarity, energy, conviction. You knew what needed to change. You made the plan. You followed it. For days, for weeks, sometimes months. You felt different, stronger, like you were finally becoming who you were meant to be. Then it stopped. Not because you failed, not because someone stopped you, not because the plan was wrong. It just stopped. The energy drained. The clarity became confusion. The conviction turned into doubt. And you told yourself a story. You said you were tired. You said the timing was off. You said you would restart later. But you did not restart. Or when you did, the same thing happened again. You have lived this cycle so many times that you have stopped believing in your own beginnings. You start something now, and there is already a voice in the background whispering that it will not last, that you will quit, that you always quit. And that voice is not wrong about the pattern, but it is wrong about the reason. You think the problem is you, your character, your willpower, your commitment, but the problem is not you. The problem is that you are fighting an invisible opponent, and you cannot win a fight against something you cannot see. This is not a failure of discipline, this is a pattern, and until you name it, you cannot fight it. The pattern is this. You begin a transformation. You move toward a new identity. You start to feel unfamiliar to yourself. And then, without warning, without external cause, your nervous system panics. Not loudly, not obviously, it panics quietly. It whispers that something is wrong, that you are doing too much, that you need to slow down, that you are not being realistic, that you should protect yourself. And you listen, because the voice sounds reasonable. It sounds like wisdom. It sounds like self-care. But it is not. It is the dark loop. It is the psychological defense mechanism that activates every time you try to become someone your past does not recognize. And the cruelty of this mechanism is that it does not feel like self-sabotage. It feels like clarity. It feels like you are finally being honest with yourself, finally being realistic about your limitations, finally accepting who you really are. But what you are really doing is obeying fear. Fear that has learned to speak in the voice of reason. Fear that has learned to disguise itself as maturity. Fear that has learned to make surrender sound like wisdom. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." But what he did not say is that sometimes your mind has power over you, and it will use that power to stop you from changing, even when change is what you need most. Here is what you must understand. The loop does not activate because you are weak. It activates because you are strong. It activates because you are succeeding. Because success means leaving behind the identity that kept you safe. And your mind, at its deepest level, interprets that as danger. So it stops you, not with force, not with obvious fear. It stops you with exhaustion, with doubt, with a quiet creeping sense that something is off, and you stop moving forward, not because you wanted to, but because continuing felt impossible. This is the pattern you refuse to name, because naming it means admitting that you are not in control, that something inside you has been sabotaging your progress, that you are fighting yourself, not the world. But here is the truth. Once you name it, you can see it. And once you can see it, it loses its power. The loop survives in the dark. It dies in the light. You are not broken. You are not doomed. You are trapped in a mechanism that was designed to protect you, but now only imprisons you. And the first step to breaking it is to stop pretending it does not exist. The question is not whether the loop is real. The question is, now that you see it, will you let it control you again? Chapter 2. Why Smart People. Self-sabotage. You are intelligent. You know that. You have always known that. Intelligence is not your problem. But intelligence is also not your solution. In fact, intelligence is one of the reasons you are stuck. This sounds wrong, but it is not. Smart people self-sabotage more effectively than anyone else, not because they are self-destructive, but because they are skilled at constructing narratives that justify their paralysis. They are skilled at finding logical reasons to quit. They are skilled at intellectualizing fear until it sounds like wisdom. You do not tell yourself you are scared. You tell yourself you are being strategic. You do not admit you are avoiding discomfort. You tell yourself you are being realistic. You do not say you are trapped. You say you are choosing to wait for the right time, and because you are smart, you believe yourself. Nietzsche said, "We often refuse to accept an idea merely because the tone of voice in which it has been expressed is unsympathetic to us." But the reverse is also true. We often accept an idea simply because we have phrased it in a way that protects our ego. And intelligent people are masters at this. Here is how it works. You decide to change. You create a plan. You start executing. Then discomfort arrives. Not failure. Not proof that you are wrong. Just discomfort. The discomfort of unfamiliarity. The discomfort of being seen differently. The discomfort of no longer fitting into the story you have told yourself about who you are, and your intelligence activates. Not to solve the problem, to explain why you should stop. It finds flaws in the plan. It identifies risks. It reminds you of past failures. It constructs a narrative in which quitting is not surrender, but intelligent adaptation. It convinces you that stopping is the smart thing to do. And because the narrative is coherent, because it is well-reasoned, because it sounds intelligent, you accept it, you quit, and you do not even realize you have been tricked. This is not unique to you. This is how intelligence works when it is used defensively. Instead of serving your growth, it serves your fear. Instead of solving problems, it rationalizes avoidance. Instead of helping you move forward, it builds walls that look like doors. Carl Jung wrote, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate." But for intelligent people, the unconscious does not stay unconscious. It becomes an elaborate, logical explanation for why fate is unavoidable. And this is the trap that intelligence creates. It gives you the tools to rationalize anything, to make any fear sound reasonable, to turn any act of avoidance into a strategic decision. And because you trust your intelligence, because you have relied on it your entire life to navigate complexity, you do not question it when it tells you to stop. But you should, because intelligence in the service of fear is just sophisticated cowardice, and no amount of logical reasoning changes that. So what is the solution? You must stop trusting your intelligence when you are in discomfort. Not permanently, not completely. But when you are in the middle of a transformation, when you are feeling the unfamiliarity of change, when the loop is trying to activate, you must stop believing your own narratives. Because in those moments, your intelligence is not working for you. It is working for your fear. And no matter how logical the explanation sounds, if the conclusion is that you should stop, it is a lie. The loop does not need to convince you that you are a failure. It only needs to convince you that quitting is reasonable. And if you are smart enough, it will succeed every time. So the next time you are building momentum and a voice in your head offers a perfectly logical reason to stop, do not argue with it. Do not analyze it. Just recognize it for what it is. The loop, dressed in intelligence, trying to pull you back. And here is something you need to understand about this particular trap. The more intelligent you are, the more elaborate the justifications become. You do not just tell yourself to stop. You build entire philosophical frameworks for why stopping is the right decision. You cite evidence. You reference past experiences. You construct arguments that would convince anyone, including yourself. And because the argument is sophisticated, because it accounts for nuance and complexity, you trust it. You think, this is not fear, this is wisdom, this is maturity. This is me finally being realistic about my limitations. But it is fear. It is always fear. Just fear with a degree. The solution is not to become less intelligent. The solution is to recognize when your intelligence has been hijacked, to notice when you are using your mind to protect your fear instead of challenge it, to see that the brilliance of the argument does not make it true. Will you let it? Chapter 3. The False Comfort of Quitting. Quitting feels like relief. That is the trap. When you stop, when you step back, when you tell yourself you will try again later, there is a moment of immediate calm. The pressure disappears. The discomfort fades. You feel like you can breathe again, and your nervous system interprets this as proof that quitting was the right decision. But it was not. What you felt was not relief from a mistake. It was relief from growth. And your body cannot tell the difference. Your nervous system is not designed to help you become extraordinary. It is designed to keep you alive. And to your nervous system, anything unfamiliar is dangerous. Change is dangerous. Growth is dangerous. Becoming someone new is dangerous. So when you push toward transformation, your nervous system registers threat, not because you are in danger, but because you are no longer predictable, and unpredictability to the ancient parts of your brain feels like death. This is why quitting feels good, not because it is the right choice, but because it returns you to predictability. It returns you to the version of yourself your nervous system recognizes. It returns you to safety. But safety is not peace. Safety is stagnation disguised as comfort. Seneca wrote, "It is not because things are difficult that we do not dare. It is because we do not dare that they are difficult." But he did not address the deeper issue. That daring feels like dying. That growth feels like loss. That transformation feels like danger. And so we quit. Not because we are cowards, but because we are human, and the human body will always choose the familiar over the unknown, even when the familiar is a prison. Here is what you need to understand. The relief you feel when you quit is a trick. It is your nervous system rewarding you for returning to the known. But that relief is temporary. It lasts hours, maybe days, and then it is replaced by something worse. Regret. Self-doubt. The quiet knowledge that you quit when you did not have to. And that pain lasts far longer than the discomfort of continuing ever would have. You know this pain intimately. It is the pain of lying in bed at night knowing you gave up again. The pain of watching someone else achieve what you abandoned. The pain of realizing that the obstacle was not external, it was you. And that pain does not fade quickly. It accumulates. It compounds. Every time you quit, it adds another layer. Another piece of evidence that you cannot trust yourself. Another reason to doubt the next beginning. So when you weigh the discomfort of continuing against the relief of quitting, you are not making a fair comparison. You are comparing temporary discomfort against temporary relief. But the true comparison is this: temporary discomfort that leads to lasting pride, or temporary relief that leads to lasting regret. Once you see it that way, the choice becomes clearer. Not easier, but clearer. So the next time you feel the urge to quit, do not ask yourself if quitting will make you feel better. It will, temporarily. Instead, ask yourself this: what will I feel in 3 days? What will I feel in a week? What will I feel in a month when I realize I stopped for no real reason except that I was uncomfortable? Because quitting is not the end of pain. It is the beginning of a different kind of suffering. The suffering of knowing you let fear win. Again. The loop survives on this trick. It offers you immediate relief in exchange for long-term regret. And every time you take the deal, the loop gets stronger, because it learns that all it has to do is make you uncomfortable and you will quit. But if you can see the trick, if you can recognize the false comfort for what it is, then you can make a different choice. You can choose the discomfort of growth over the relief of quitting. You can choose the temporary pain of transformation over the permanent pain of staying the same. The loop is counting on you to choose comfort. Will you prove it wrong? Chapter 4. Trauma does not shout, it whispers. You do not think you have trauma, not real trauma, not the kind that matters. You think trauma is reserved for people who have been through something catastrophic, something visible, something that justifies the word. But trauma is not always loud. Sometimes it is quiet. Sometimes it is so quiet you do not even know it is there. Trauma is not just what happened to you. It is what you learned about yourself because of what happened to you. It is the conclusion you drew, the belief you internalized, the rule you made about who you are and what you deserve. And those rules are still running in the background, quietly, invisibly, controlling how far you allow yourself to go. You do not remember making the rules. You do not remember the moment you decided you were not allowed to succeed, or that you were not allowed to be visible, or that you were not allowed to need help. But the rules are there, and every time you try to break them, the dark loop activates. Because the loop is not trying to hurt you, it is trying to enforce the rules. It is trying to keep you safe from the thing that hurt you before, even if that thing is no longer real. Dostoevsky wrote, "The soul is healed by being with children." But what he did not say is that the soul is also wounded by being a child, and those wounds do not heal just because time passes. They heal when you stop letting them dictate your future. Here is how the loop uses trauma. It does not remind you of the original event. It does not bring up the memory. It does not need to. Instead, it creates situations that feel emotionally similar, and when you feel that similarity, your body reacts as if the danger is still present. So when you try to be visible, the loop reminds you of the time visibility led to humiliation, not consciously, just emotionally, and you feel unsafe, so you hide. When you try to succeed, the loop reminds you of the time success led to punishment, not with a memory, with a feeling, and you feel unsafe, so you stop. When you try to need something, the loop reminds you of the time need led to abandonment, not with a flashback, with a quiet whisper that says, "You are asking for too much," and you feel unsafe, so you withdraw, and you do not know why. You do not connect it to the past. You just feel that something is wrong, and you listen to that feeling, because it feels true. This is why the loop is so effective. It does not argue with you. It does not present a case. It simply generates a feeling. And feelings bypass logic. They bypass reason. They bypass every defense you have built. Because feelings do not feel like interpretations. They feel like facts. And when a feeling tells you that you are in danger, every intelligent part of you will work to construct a narrative that explains why the feeling is correct, why you should stop, why continuing is reckless. But it is not true. It is a memory, a whisper from a version of you that no longer exists, trying to protect a version of you that no longer needs protection. So, what is the solution? You must learn to differentiate between past and present. between then and now, between what happened and what is happening. And the way you do this is simple. When you feel the loop activating, when you feel the quiet whisper that says you are not safe, you ask yourself one question. Is this feeling about what is happening now, or is this feeling about what happened before? If the feeling is about before, then it is not real, not in this moment, not in this context. It is an echo, and echoes cannot hurt you unless you believe they are the original sound. Jung said, "I am not what happened to me. I am what I choose to become." But that choice is not made once. It is made every time you feel the loop activate, every time you feel the whisper, every time you have to decide whether you will let the past control the present. Trauma does not shout, it whispers. But once you hear it, once you recognize it, it loses its grip, because it can only control you when you think it is the truth. Is it? Chapter 5. Motivation is not the problem. You think you need motivation. That is what you have been told. That if you could just find the right reason, the right spark, the right vision, then you would be able to sustain change. Then you would not quit. But motivation is not the problem. Motivation is a feeling, and feelings do not last. You have been motivated before, many times. You remember the clarity, the fire, the certainty that this time would be different. And it felt real. It felt permanent. You believed it would carry you through, but it did not. Because motivation is not a foundation. It is a spark, and sparks burn out. The dark loop does not care about your motivation. In fact, the loop waits for your motivation to fade, because once it does, once the feeling is gone, you will stop, and you will blame yourself for not being motivated enough, for not having enough discipline, for not wanting it badly enough. But the problem was never motivation. The problem is that you built your transformation on a feeling, and feelings are not reliable. Epictetus said, "No man is free who is not master of himself." But you cannot master yourself if your progress depends on how you feel, because feelings change constantly, and if your ability to move forward requires you to feel motivated, then you are not in control. Your emotions are. So what is the alternative? You must replace motivation with structure, not a rigid, punishing structure, a quiet one, a structure that does not depend on how you feel, a structure that exists whether you are excited or exhausted, a structure that is so simple, so undeniable, that the loop cannot argue with it. Here is how that works. You do not ask yourself if you feel like doing the thing. You do not wait for motivation. You do not check your energy level. You simply do the smallest version of the thing. Every day, regardless of how you feel. If the thing is writing, you write one sentence. If the thing is exercise, you do one push-up. If the thing is building something, you open the file. You do not do more unless you want to. You do not force intensity. You just do the smallest version, consistently. And here is what happens. The loop has no argument. Because you are not asking for motivation. You are not trying to be heroic. You are just doing the smallest version. And the smallest version is so small that the loop cannot justify stopping you. You cannot argue with one sentence. You cannot claim that one push-up is unrealistic. You cannot say that opening a file is too much. The demand is so minimal that resistance has nothing to grab onto. And this is the key. The loop thrives on big commitments, on intensity, on dramatic declarations of change, because those create pressure, and pressure creates discomfort, and discomfort gives the loop the opening it needs to say, "See, this is too much. You need to stop." But the smallest version creates no pressure. It creates no discomfort. It is just a quiet, undeniable action that happens regardless of how you feel. But over time, the smallest version becomes normal. It becomes part of who you are. It becomes identity, not effort. And once it is identity, the loop loses its grip. Because the loop can stop motivation, it can stop excitement, it can stop willpower, but it cannot stop identity. Identity does not require motivation. Identity just is. Schopenhauer wrote, "A man can be himself only so long as he is alone." But the reverse is also true. A man can only become himself when he stops waiting for permission from his emotions. So stop chasing motivation. Stop trying to feel ready. Stop waiting for the moment when you will finally have enough fire to carry you through. The fire will fade. It always does. But if you build on structure, on identity, on the smallest version repeated endlessly, then the fire does not matter. Because you are not moving forward because you feel like it. You are moving forward because that is who you are. And the loop cannot stop that. Will you build on motivation, or will you build on identity? Chapter 6. The Identity Trap. You are not afraid of change. You are afraid of who you will have to stop being in order to change. This is the identity trap. And it is the deepest mechanism of the dark loop. You have spent your entire life becoming the person you are now. You have built beliefs, habits, relationships, and stories around that identity. You know who you are. You know how you react. You know what you are capable of. And even if you hate parts of that identity, even if you want to escape it, it is still yours. It is still familiar. And familiarity feels like safety. So when you try to become someone new, when you start behaving in ways that do not match your old identity, your mind panics. Not because the new behavior is wrong, but because it does not recognize you. And if it does not recognize you, then it cannot predict you. And if it cannot predict you, then it cannot protect you. So it tries to pull you back, not with logic, not with argument, with discomfort, with a quiet nagging sense that something is wrong, that you are being fake, that you are betraying yourself, that you are pretending to be someone you are not. And because you believe that feeling, because it feels true, you stop. You return to the old identity. You tell yourself you were just being realistic, that you were just being honest. But what you were really doing was obeying the loop. Nietzsche wrote, "You must be ready to burn yourself in your own flame. How could you rise anew if you have not first become ashes?" But he did not explain how much it hurts to burn, how much it feels like death, how much every part of you will fight to stay intact. Here is the truth. You cannot become someone new without letting the old version of you die. Not metaphorically. Actually, the beliefs you held, the habits you relied on, the way you saw yourself, all of it has to go, and your mind will interpret that as loss, as grief, as danger, and it will try to stop you. This is why transformation feels so destabilizing. You are not just adding new behaviors. You are removing the scaffolding that held your entire sense of self together. You are dismantling the structure you spent years building. And even if that structure was a prison, it was your prison. It was familiar. It was predictable. It was safe. And now, it is gone. And you are standing in the open with no protection, no framework, no clear sense of who you are. And that feeling is terrifying in a way that nothing external can match. This is the moment when most people retreat, when they decide that the discomfort is too much, when they tell themselves that maybe the old identity was not so bad, when they rebuild the walls and return to the prison, because at least in the prison they knew who they were. But here is what you must understand. The old identity is not you. It is a structure you built to survive, and it served you. It kept you safe. It got you this far. But it is not designed to take you further. It is designed to keep you where you are. So if you want to grow, if you want to escape, if you want to become someone who does not live in the loop, then you have to be willing to let the old identity die, without guilt, without nostalgia, without pretending it was more than it was. And that means you have to endure the discomfort of being unrecognizable to yourself. You have to endure the feeling that you are being fake. You have to endure the quiet voice that says you are betraying who you really are. Because that voice is wrong. You are not betraying yourself. You are freeing yourself. But the loop will not tell you that. The loop will tell you that the discomfort is proof that you are on the wrong path, that the unfamiliarity is proof that this is not really you, that the fear is proof that you should stop. And if you believe it, you will. You will return to the old identity. You will tell yourself it was the right choice, and you will stay trapped. But if you can see the identity trap for what it is, if you can recognize the discomfort as proof that you are changing, not proof that you are wrong, then you can endure it. You can let the old identity die. You can become someone new, not because it feels good, but because it is necessary. Jung said, "The privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are." But becoming who you truly are means killing who you used to be. And that is not a privilege, that is a sacrifice. Are you willing to make it? Chapter 7. The exhaustion that has no physical cause. You are tired, deeply tired. Not the kind of tired that comes from work, not the kind that sleep fixes, the kind of tired that lives in your bones, that makes every small task feel impossible, that makes you wonder if something is medically wrong with you. But there is nothing medically wrong with you. The exhaustion is real. But the cause is not physical. This is emotional exhaustion, and it is one of the most effective weapons the dark loop has. Emotional exhaustion does not announce itself. It does not say, "You are emotionally drained from fighting yourself." It just makes you tired. So tired that you cannot think clearly. So tired that you cannot plan. So tired that the idea of trying again feels unbearable. And because the exhaustion feels physical, because it feels like your body is failing you, you treat it like a physical problem. You rest, you sleep more, you reduce your commitments, you tell yourself, you just need to recover. But you do not recover, because the exhaustion is not caused by doing too much. It is caused by fighting the loop, by holding two opposing identities at once, by trying to move forward while part of you is pulling you back. And that internal war is exhausting in a way that nothing physical can match. Think about what is actually happening inside you. One part of you is trying to build a new life, to create new habits, to become someone different. That part is pushing forward with everything it has. It is planning, it is executing, it is refusing to quit. But another part of you is terrified. It sees the change as danger. It sees the new identity as a threat, and it is fighting with equal intensity to stop you, to slow you down, to pull you back to the familiar. And you are caught in the middle. You are the battlefield, and the war is constant. It does not stop when you sleep. It does not stop when you rest. It is always there. This quiet, invisible conflict that drains you more than any physical effort ever could. This is why you can sleep 10 hours and wake up exhausted. Why you can take a week off and still feel drained. Why no amount of rest seems to help. Because the exhaustion is not physical. It is the cost of internal division. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events." But what happens when the war is inside your mind? What happens when the exhaustion comes not from external effort, but from internal conflict? You must recognize it. You must see that the exhaustion is not proof that you are weak. It is proof that you are fighting, and the loop is using that exhaustion to convince you to stop fighting. Here is how the loop does it. It makes you tired. So tired that you cannot sustain effort. So tired that you cannot think clearly. And then it whispers. It says, "See, you are doing too much. You need to slow down. You need to take care of yourself." And you believe it, because the exhaustion is real. And the voice sounds like wisdom. But slowing down does not fix the exhaustion. Because the exhaustion is not caused by speed. It is caused by internal resistance, by the part of you that is trying to hold on to the old identity while another part is trying to let it go. And the only way to end that exhaustion is to stop resisting, to stop holding both identities, to choose one and commit. But the loop does not want you to choose, because as long as you are split, as long as you are fighting yourself, you are too tired to escape. You are too tired to build. You are too tired to become someone new. So you stay where you are, not because you want to, but because you are too exhausted to move. Seneca said, "It is not that we have a short time to live, but that we waste a lot of it." But sometimes the waste is not laziness. Sometimes the waste is exhaustion created by internal war. And that exhaustion feels like it will last forever, but it will not. If you stop fighting, if you stop trying to hold on to the old identity while building a new one, if you just choose, commit and move forward without looking back, the exhaustion will lift. Not immediately, but gradually. And you will realize that what you thought was physical weakness was just the cost of indecision. The loop thrives on exhaustion, because exhausted people do not fight, they surrender. But now you know what the exhaustion really is, and knowing that, you can choose differently. Will you? Chapter 8. Anxiety as a control mechanism. Anxiety is not your enemy, but it is not your friend either. Anxiety is a signal, a warning, a message from your nervous system that something is wrong. And when you listen to it, when you take it seriously, it feels like you are being responsible, like you are protecting yourself. But anxiety is not telling you the truth. It is telling you what your body believes. And your body does not understand the difference between real danger and perceived danger, between actual threat and unfamiliarity. So when you start to change, when you start to move toward a new identity, your body interprets that as danger, and it sends the signal, anxiety. And the anxiety feels real. It feels urgent. It feels like proof that something is wrong. So you stop, you pull back, you return to the familiar, and the anxiety fades, and you think you made the right decision, because the anxiety went away. But the anxiety did not go away because you avoided danger. The anxiety went away because you obeyed the loop. Epictetus said, "It is not things themselves that disturb people, but their judgments about those things." But anxiety does not feel like a judgment. It feels like a fact. It feels like the truth about what is happening. And so you trust it. You let it control you. You let it decide what you can and cannot do. And every time you do that, the loop gets stronger, because it learns that all it has to do to stop you is make you anxious. And you will stop yourself. But here is what you need to understand. Anxiety is not prophecy. It is not prediction. It is not insight. It is just your body reacting to unfamiliarity. And unfamiliarity is not dangerous. It is just uncomfortable. So the next time you feel anxiety when you are moving toward change, do not ask yourself if the anxiety is real. It is. But ask yourself what it is signaling. Is it signaling actual danger? Or is it signaling discomfort with the unfamiliar? Because if it is signaling discomfort, then it is not a reason to stop. It is proof that you are changing. And change always feels like danger to a nervous system that was designed to keep you predictable. So you must learn to move forward with anxiety, not to eliminate it, not to fight it, but to recognize it for what it is, a signal from a part of you that does not understand what you are trying to do. And when you move forward anyway, when you continue despite the anxiety, something shifts. The anxiety does not disappear, but it stops controlling you, because you prove to yourself that you can feel anxiety and still move. You can feel fear and still act. You can feel discomfort and still grow. And that is the only way to break the loop. Not by eliminating anxiety, but by refusing to let it be the deciding factor. Here is what most people do not understand about anxiety. They think anxiety is a warning about the future, a prediction about what will happen. But anxiety is not prophetic. It is not telling you what will happen. It is telling you what your body believes might happen based on what has happened before. And your body's predictions are not accurate. They are conservative. They are designed to keep you alive, not to help you thrive. They assume the worst. They overestimate danger. They underestimate your capacity to handle discomfort. So when you feel anxiety about change, your body is not telling you that change is dangerous. Your body is telling you that change is unfamiliar. And unfamiliar equals dangerous to a nervous system that was built to prioritize survival over growth. But you are not just a nervous system. You are also a mind. And your mind can override your body's predictions, not by denying the anxiety, not by pretending it is not there, but by recognizing it as information, not instruction. Schopenhauer wrote, "A man can do what he wants, but not want what he wants." But he was wrong about one thing. You can choose what you do even when you do not want to do it, even when every part of you is anxious, even when your body is screaming that you should stop. Because the loop uses anxiety as a control mechanism, and the moment you stop being controlled by it, the moment you move forward despite it, the loop begins to lose. Anxiety will not disappear, but it will stop being the reason you quit. Is that enough? Chapter 9. The moment. The loop activates. There is a moment, a specific moment, when the loop activates. Most people do not notice it. They only notice the consequences, the exhaustion, the doubt, the sudden loss of momentum. But the loop does not start there. It starts earlier, and if you can catch it in that moment, before it gains control, you can stop it. So here is what you need to know. The loop does not activate when you fail. It activates when you succeed. Specifically, it activates when you start to feel unfamiliar to yourself. When you start to notice that you are behaving differently. When you realize that you are no longer the person you used to be. And in that moment, your mind panics. Not because you are doing something wrong, but because you are doing something right. Because you are changing, and change, to your nervous system, is indistinguishable from danger. So it sends the signal, a quiet, subtle discomfort, a sense that something is off, that you are being fake, that you are trying too hard, that this is not sustainable. And if you do not recognize that signal for what it is, if you interpret it as truth instead of defense, then you will slow down. You will pull back. You will start questioning whether this change is really you. And once you start questioning, the loop has won. Because doubt is the beginning of retreat. Jung said, "The most terrifying thing is to accept oneself completely." But the terror is not philosophical, it is visceral. It happens in a single moment when you realize you are no longer who you used to be, and your mind, in that moment, tries to pull you back. So how do you stop it? You recognize the moment. You name it. You say to yourself, out loud or internally, "This is the loop activating. This discomfort is not proof that I am on the wrong path. It is proof that I am changing. And change always feels dangerous to a mind that was designed to keep me predictable." And then you continue. Not with force, not with intensity. You just continue. You do the next small thing. You take the next small step. You refuse to stop and question. You refuse to retreat into analysis. You just move. Because the loop needs time. It needs you to pause. It needs you to think. Because when you think, when you analyze, when you question, you give it space to build a narrative that will convince you that quitting is reasonable. And here is the critical insight. The narrative always sounds reasonable. It never sounds like fear. It sounds like wisdom. It sounds like self-awareness. It sounds like maturity. It will say things like, maybe this is not the right approach for me, or maybe I am forcing something that is not meant to be, or maybe I should wait until I have more clarity. And all of these statements sound thoughtful. They sound measured. They sound like the voice of someone who has learned from their mistakes. But they are not. They are the voice of the loop, trying to pull you back into the familiar, trying to convince you that stopping is growth when stopping is surrender. But if you do not pause, if you do not give it that space, then the loop cannot complete. It starts, but it does not finish. And every time you move through that moment without retreating, the loop gets weaker. Not because you defeated it, but because you prove to yourself that the discomfort does not mean danger, that unfamiliarity does not mean wrong, that change does not require permission from your nervous system. Seneca wrote, "Sometimes even to live is an act of courage." But he did not specify that the courage is not needed for the big moments. It is needed for the small ones. The moment when the loop activates, the moment when you feel the quiet discomfort and have to decide whether you will listen. Because that moment happens often, every time you are changing, every time you are growing, every time you are becoming someone new. And if you can recognize that moment, if you can see it for what it is, then you can choose differently. You can continue. You can move. You can refuse to retreat. And the loop, which has controlled you for so long, will start to lose its grip. Because it can only stop you if you do not see it coming. Do you see it now? Chapter 10. Breaking the Loop Without Becoming Someone Else. You are afraid that breaking the loop means becoming someone you do not recognize. Someone cold, someone robotic, someone who no longer feels. But that is not what breaking the loop means. Breaking the loop does not mean eliminating emotion. It does not mean forcing yourself to be disciplined in a way that feels violent. It does not mean rejecting who you are. It means rejecting the mechanism that stops you from becoming who you could be. There is a difference. You can break the loop and still be yourself. You can break the loop and still feel doubt. You can break the loop and still have bad days. You can break the loop and still be human. Because breaking the loop is not about perfection. It is about awareness. It is about seeing the mechanism before it takes control. It is about choosing to move forward even when part of you is pulling back. And that does not require you to become someone else. It requires you to stop letting the past version of you dictate the future. Nietzsche wrote, "Become who you are, not who you should be, not who others expect you to be, who you are." But who you are is not static. It is not fixed. It is not the person you were 5 years ago, or last year, or yesterday. Who you are is the person you are becoming. And the loop is what stops you from becoming that person. So breaking the loop is not betrayal. It is alignment. It is allowing yourself to grow into the person you are always capable of being. The person you would have been if fear had not stopped you. And that person is not someone else. That person is you. The version of you that was not trapped. The version of you that did not quit. The version of you that moved through discomfort instead of retreating from it. But here is the difficult part. You will not feel like that person immediately. You will not wake up one day and feel transformed. You will still feel like yourself. And that will make you doubt whether you are really changing. But you are. The change is happening in the actions, not the feelings. In the decisions, not the emotions. In the consistency, not the intensity. And over time, the actions become identity. The decisions become character. The consistency becomes who you are. This is what people misunderstand about transformation. They think it should feel dramatic. They think there should be a moment when everything clicks, when they suddenly feel like a new person, when the old struggles disappear and the new life feels natural. But that moment does not come. Or if it does, it comes so gradually, so quietly, that you do not notice it until you look back and realize you are no longer the person you were 6 months ago. The transformation happens in the accumulated weight of small choices, in the repeated refusal to let the loop control you, in the quiet, undramatic act of continuing when every part of you wants to stop. And you will not feel heroic while you are doing it. You will not feel like you are winning. You will just feel like you are enduring, like you are surviving, like you are doing the bare minimum to keep going. But that is what transformation looks like. Not intensity, not drama, not the heroic arc you see in movies. Just the quiet, persistent refusal to quit. But you have to trust that. You have to trust that you can change without losing yourself. You have to trust that breaking the loop does not mean becoming someone you do not recognize. It means becoming someone you finally do recognize. Someone who is no longer controlled by fear, disguised as wisdom. Marcus Aurelius said, "Waste no more time arguing what a good man should be. Be one." But being one does not mean being perfect. It means being intentional. It means seeing the loop and refusing to let it control you. And that is something you can do without becoming someone else, without losing your humanity, without betraying who you are. Because breaking the loop is not about becoming someone new. It is about stopping the thing that prevents you from growing. And that is not a transformation. That is liberation. Are you ready for it? Chapter 11. Why this time is actually different. You do not believe this time will be different. How could you? You have tried before, many times, and every time felt like it would be different. Every time felt like you finally understood. Every time felt real, until it was not. So why would this time be any different? Here is why. Because this time, you know about the loop. Every previous attempt failed, not because you were not committed, not because you did not want it enough, not because you were lazy or weak or broken. Every previous attempt failed because you did not know what you were fighting. You thought you were fighting yourself, your lack of discipline, your lack of motivation, your lack of willpower. And so you tried to fix those things. You tried to be more disciplined, more motivated, more consistent, but you were fighting the wrong enemy. The enemy was never you. The enemy was the loop. The invisible mechanism that activates every time you try to change. The mechanism that disguises itself as wisdom, as self-care, as realism. The mechanism that makes quitting feel like the right choice. And because you could not see it, because you did not know it was there, it controlled you every single time. But now you see it. Now you know what it is. Now you know how it works. You know when it activates. You know what it feels like. You know the signals, the exhaustion, the doubt, the quiet discomfort that says something is wrong. And once you see it, it cannot trick you the same way. It can still activate. It will still try, but it cannot control you if you know it is there. Think about what this means. Every previous time you tried to change, the loop was invisible. It was operating in the background, generating feelings that you interpreted as truth. When you felt exhausted, you thought you were doing too much. When you felt doubt, you thought you were on the wrong path. When you felt discomfort, you thought something was wrong. But now you know that exhaustion is not always proof of overexertion. Doubt is not always proof of error. Discomfort is not always proof of danger. Sometimes these feelings are just the loop, just the mechanism trying to pull you back, just your nervous system resisting change. And that knowledge changes everything, because you can feel the exhaustion and still continue. You can feel the doubt and still persist. You can feel the discomfort and still move forward, not because the feelings are gone, but because you know what they mean. And what they mean is that you are changing. Dostoevsky wrote, The cleverest of all, in my opinion, is the man who calls himself a fool at least once a month. But the reverse is also true. The wisest person is the one who recognizes when they are being fooled, and you have been fooled by the loop your entire life, but not anymore. This time is different because you have information you did not have before. You have awareness, you have language, you have a way to name what is happening when it happens, and that changes everything. Because the loop survives in the dark. It survives when you interpret its signals as truth, when you think the exhaustion is proof you are doing too much, when you think the doubt is proof you are on the wrong path, when you think the discomfort is proof you should stop. But now you know the truth. The exhaustion is not proof you are doing too much. It is proof you are fighting internal resistance. The doubt is not proof you are on the wrong path. It is proof you are leaving the old identity. The discomfort is not proof you should stop. It is proof you are changing. And once you know that, once you truly internalize that, you can make different choices. Not perfect choices, not choices that eliminate the discomfort, but choices that refuse to let the discomfort be the deciding factor. And that is what breaks the loop. Not intensity, not willpower, not motivation, awareness, clarity, the ability to see what is happening and choose differently. So this time is different, not because you are different, not because your circumstances are different, but because you can see the thing that was stopping you, and you cannot unsee it. Epictetus said, "First say to yourself what you would be, and then do what you have to do." But he did not explain that the hardest part is knowing what is stopping you from doing what you have to do. And now you know, the loop is real. It will activate. It will try to stop you. But it cannot stop you if you see it, if you name it, if you refuse to interpret its signals as truth. This time is different, not because you will not struggle, but because you will struggle with clarity. And clarity changes everything. Do you believe that? Chapter 12. Living with the scar, not the loop. You will not be cured. Let that be clear. You will not reach a point where the loop is gone forever, where discomfort no longer arises, where change feels easy, where growth requires no effort. That is not how this works. What you are learning is not how to eliminate the loop. You are learning how to live with it, how to recognize it, how to move forward despite it. And that is not the same as being free of it. Because the loop is not an infection you can remove. It is a scar, a mark left by every time you tried to change and something inside you panicked. Every time you moved toward something unfamiliar and your nervous system interpreted it as danger. And scars do not disappear. They fade. They become less sensitive. But they remain. So the goal is not to eliminate the loop. The goal is to stop letting it control you, to stop interpreting its activation as truth, to stop retreating every time you feel discomfort. And that is a practice, not a destination, a practice that you will repeat for the rest of your life, because every time you grow, every time you change, every time you become someone new, the loop will activate, and you will have to choose again. Jung wrote, "I am not what happened to me. I am what I choose to become." But becoming is not a single act. It is a series of choices, made again and again. In the moments when the loop is pulling you back, in the moments when quitting feels reasonable, in the moments when continuing feels impossible. And in those moments, you will not feel strong. You will not feel certain. You will not feel like you are winning. But you will be. Because living with the scar means accepting that growth is uncomfortable, that change will always feel dangerous to a part of you that was designed to keep you safe. That transformation requires moving forward, even when your nervous system is screaming at you to stop. And that is not heroic. That is not dramatic. That is just what it takes. So here is what you need to accept. You will have bad days. You will have moments when the loop feels overwhelming. You will have times when you question everything, when you wonder if any of this is worth it, when you feel like quitting again. And that is normal. That is not failure. That is the scar being sensitive. That is the loop trying to reassert control. That is the old identity resisting its death. But now you know what it is, and knowing what it is means you do not have to obey it. You can feel it, you can acknowledge it, and you can choose to continue anyway. There will be moments when you forget everything you have learned here, when the loop activates and you do not recognize it, when you stop moving forward and do not realize why, and you will feel like you have lost all progress, like you are back where you started. But you are not back where you started, because even if you forget temporarily, the knowledge is still there, and eventually you will remember. You will recognize the pattern, you will see the loop, and you will make a different choice. This is not about perfection. This is not about never falling back into old patterns. This is about falling back less often, and when you do fall back, recognizing it sooner, recovering faster, losing less ground, and over time, the loop's grip weakens, not because it disappears, but because you get better at seeing it, better at moving through it, better at refusing to let it control you. Seneca said, "A gem cannot be polished without friction, nor a man perfected without trials." But he did not say the trials end. He did not say the friction stops. He said, that is how you are polished, and the polishing never stops, because growth never stops. So you will live with the scar. You will feel the loop activate. You will experience the discomfort, the doubt, the exhaustion, the anxiety, and you will not be immune to it. You will not transcend it. You will not outgrow it, but you will move through it. You will recognize it for what it is. You will refuse to let it dictate your choices, and that will be enough. Not perfect, not painless, but enough. Because the loop is not your enemy anymore. It is just a signal, a reminder that you are changing, a reminder that you are moving towards something unfamiliar, a reminder that growth feels like danger to a part of you that does not understand what you are doing. And when you see it that way, when you stop fighting it and start recognizing it, it loses its power. Not completely, but enough. Enough for you to keep moving, enough for you to keep building, enough for you to become the person you were always capable of being. And that person is not free of the loop. That person just knows how to live with it, how to recognize it, how to move forward despite it. And that is not a small thing, that is everything. The loop may return. It will feel familiar. It will whisper the same doubts, the same fears, the same justifications for quitting, but it will never again be invisible. And that changes everything. You are not cured. You are awake. And that is enough. Because awakening is not the absence of struggle. It is the presence of clarity. It is knowing what you are fighting. It is recognizing the loop before it completes. It is choosing to move forward even when every feeling tells you to stop. And that choice, made repeatedly, over time, across months and years, becomes who you are. Not someone who never struggles, not someone who never doubts, but someone who struggles and doubts and continues anyway. Someone who has learned to live with the scar. Someone who knows the loop will activate and has decided it will not control them. Someone who understands that growth is not the absence of fear, but the refusal to let fear be the final word. This is not the end of difficulty. This is the beginning of something different. A life where you are no longer surprised by your own patterns, where you no longer interpret discomfort as failure, where you no longer quit without knowing why. The loop will try again, but you will see it. And seeing it is everything.